And welcome to mytenniscoaching.com. As always, I'm your host, Steve Whelan, and in today's podcast and video stream, we are going to discuss Norway and their approach to youth sports. I hope we're all well. Apologies straight away if you hear some background noise. It's my neighbors who've decided, just as I'm about to stream, to do some DIY. So apologies if you hear some noise in the background. I only have a short window today to stream. So we're just going to get on with it, and hopefully it's not too distracting. But yes, we're going to look at an article that I've been sent quite a few times now over the past few months. Obviously, on social media, I am pretty proactive and pretty vocal about my approach to tennis coaching, especially, and using the ecological dynamics approach, constraint-led approach. And I did a webinar or a stream a few months back on my thoughts about competition. And once that got released and people start to see it, I start to get more and more article links about Norway. And I wanted to share one of those links with you today and so just discuss the approach that Norway have taken to youth sports, how it compares in the article to the US, but also I want to sort of reflect on how we approach youth sports here in the UK. And is there a better approach? And look at sort of what Norway are doing and look at the pros and cons. So I'm just going to share my screen. Obviously, if you're listening to this on the podcast, I will talk through it so you know exactly what's on my screen. So this is a column from the San Diego, depending if you've seen Anchorman, Union Tribute website. And the headline is Norway's hands-off approach to youth sports might explain why they're so good as they get older. And the article just sort of kicks off with just a little bit of a background about Norway and how successful they've been. Kasper Ruud, Erger Haaland, Victor Hovland. Sorry if I butcher anyone's surnames here. But Norway, despite being a relatively small country, and the article says there are 5.5 million people in the country, it's quite, I think, renowned for being quite a good winter Olympic nation, because obviously it's quite north and it's quite cold and there's lots of snow and lots of mountains. But as you see there, things like tennis, football or soccer, golf, Norway are starting to produce some world-class athletes. And I've just highlighted a few parts. I will put the link to the full article in the show notes and the description below on YouTube. But I'm just going to highlight some bits here that I've pulled out and that's I want to sort of discuss. So let's kick off this first bit here. I like the Norwegian sports model, Walholm, who didn't focus on the hurdles until the age of 20 after shattering the world record at the Tokyo Olympics last summer. I think a lot of people can learn from it. I never felt any pressure. My parents never pushed me. But that also created something inside me that I had my own drive. I had my own flame. And straight away, I'm going to sort of stop there. So this is a hurdler, Olympic hurdler, who didn't actually focus on the hurdles till the age of 20. So quite late specialization. We'd probably just call that in our sports. And straight away, for me, that's like night and day from a lot of the players and parents I've encountered over the past 22 years working in the tennis pathway. A lot of peer pressure from the parents, from the other friends as well, to really specialize in tennis early. And I'm seeing that more and more now as well with kids choosing to stop other sports and they want to really focus on their tennis and be really quite professional in their approach. And I'm like, well, you're only 7. Like, you're not a pro tennis player here. But you see it a lot with 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds playing tennis exclusively, not doing any other sports. A lot of the parents are pretty keen. And I think a great quote there is like, well, because it was my own hurdles in this case, that created my own personal drive. It was their sport. It wasn't their parents living their life through their kids. Then the article continues. Youth sports in the United States, your kid tries out for an under-8 soccer team. You fork out $2,000 per year in club dues. plus another 1,000 in tournament travel costs. You don't play other sports for the fear your kid will fall behind. You religiously attend every game, scream at the sidelines. You question the coach's tactics and substitutions. You let your kid in the car on the way home. You proudly post on Facebook pictures of your kid with medals. You start talking about college scholarships and the national team. To me, that's a classic sort of tennis parent here, especially in the UK. You pay out a lot of money, and I think hats off to parents who really invest not only a lot of money but also a lot of time. But that's pretty much what you see up and down the country when you attend tennis tournaments. I'm at a tournament this weekend. I guarantee I'll see that. I'll see parents shouting and screaming, arguing about line calls, calling other children cheats. Like they're calling 9, 10-year-old children cheats, or because you're playing a recreational tennis tournament and you think it's a real big event and it's a Wimbledon. So many lectures. And even like where I work now, like the amount of times I've seen parents, and we've got a balcony in my tennis center, and the parents are shouting down from the balcony, telling the players how to play better. Now, these parents have no idea how to play tennis. Most of them don't play tennis to any high level. They may be recreational club players. A lot of them don't play tennis at all, but then they think they've got the experience and the expertise to lecture their children how to play better. And I was at a tournament a few weeks ago, and I was with one of my players, and the parents going, "Oh my God, they're missing so many easy shots." And I said, "Well, why don't you get the racket and go on court? If it's so easy, why don't you have a go?" I was a little bit tongue in cheek, and I've got a good relationship with this parent, so they knew I weren't being too serious. But I was like, it looks easy from standing here because we don't have the perspective of the player. We don't see what the player sees. We don't feel what the player feels. Like just because we believe it's easy doesn't mean it is. And you see it a lot. Like a kid will miss a short ball and the parents groan, "Oh, how did he miss that?" Well, we don't know. They may have seen something that we didn't. Something may have distracted them as they were shaping up to hit the ball. They may have just chosen to hit the wrong shot at the wrong time. Like, again, it's really easy to stand at the sidelines and then look and then question why players are making certain decisions. Like my 2 youngest girls both play football. I went to a football match every week and the parents are shouting, "Pass." Well, how do you know that your daughter in this case can see the opportunity to pass, the affordance, the invitation? You don't see the angle that the player sees. You don't see the gap to pass the ball through. And the classic one, especially in football, when the striker gets close to goal, shoots. Well, you don't know if that's a good option because you can't see through the eyes of the player. And I used to really annoy me when I used to play football and I'd hear the shout from shoot, either from a coach or a parent. Like, you don't see what I'm seeing. I might not see the gap to shoot from the sidelines. It may look like a big angle, but actually when you're in the field of play and you're dealing with the pressure of opponents and defenders, your peripheral vision will probably narrow anyway. So you probably don't see what the parent sees. And it really annoys me, stuff like that. And again, lecturing the coach on what to do and what they should be doing. Like, no disrespect, but I wouldn't go into your work and tell you how to do your job properly. So again, argument's sake, if a parent of mine is a lawyer, I'm not going to go in and say, "Well, have you thought about doing that? I noticed that you've been defending this way in terms of the case. Have you tried trying this, looking at that law?" But again, parents believe because they watch a lot of tennis, they just become this expert. And I always say there's always a huge bias with parents. So they don't quite see it through a impartial lens that maybe a coach does. They see it in terms of they want their kids to get better. They're investing a lot of money and they become obsessed with things that sometimes are irrelevant. So there's a huge bias there when parents are feeding back. Now, I do believe parents have a right to feedback and have a right to an opinion. And I will always listen to parents' opinions. But if parents start telling me, "Oh, we should do orange ball this week," or "we should do green ball," which I see a lot recently, well, why? If you're playing up and playing green, and then you want to change to orange because you got an orange event, well, maybe you should be training orange. Like, don't dictate to me what group the child goes in or what ball colour I'm going to use that week. Like, that's up to me as a professional. Again, share your opinion. But if I make the decision to go against you, then that's my decision. And I think coaches are so scared of losing players in that case, because, if I go against the parent, then they'll leave. I was that coach many years ago. Now I just say, listen, if you don't like the way I'm doing stuff, if you don't like my decisions, then let's end this relationship, because if there's no trust in me, then there's no point going forward, because you're going to leave at some point anyway. So let's just leave now, and rather than wasting time and money, go somewhere else. And I guarantee another coach will sell you the world, and they'll pander to what you ask and pander to what you sort of want, because they want the money from you. And we'll look a little bit at that later on in this article. But to me, that's pretty much tennis coaches, parents in general. Not all tennis parents like that, but the vast majority, especially in the role that I play within Player Pathway, see a lot of that. Now we look at the Norway model a little bit further down the article. So youth sports in Norway, your kid tries multiple sports at the local club, whether or not they're good at them. They pay a nominal fee, but only if they can afford it, because it's subsidized by the national lottery. Coaches are volunteers. There's no scores or standings at regional competitions under the age 11, sometimes older. Children are encouraged to pick their own sport and decide amongst themselves what they want to do in practice. Most kids don't specialize until late in high school. Oh my God, this, like, to me, from a non-linear ecological dynamics point of view, this is like my perfect environment. If I was to build my own tennis club, I wish I had the money. Maybe if people subscribe to the channel and join my Tennis Coach Academy, one day I might be able to afford my own channel. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. My own club. But let's just look at that. So kids try multiple sports. If I think back to my upbringing, I played so many sports: basketball, football, athletics, tennis, volleyball at one stage, rugby, you name it. I probably have tried the sport. Golf. No coaching in any of those sports. I just played the games, and I loved every single game. I think at different parts of my life, I've been obsessed with different sports, whether it be golf, whether it be basketball, whether it be athletics, whether it be football, whether it be tennis. And I believe that gave me a huge range of different skills. And I always talk about this when I'm talking about team elements within tennis coaches. I think I come in with a completely different perspective, because I was always brought up playing football in teams. So I'm used to working with people. I'm used to sharing ideas, sharing challenges. I'm used to backing people when they need support. And I'm used to people having my back when I need support. You work in coaching teams and you don't get any of that. Why? Because in tennis, it's all about you. You're very selfish when you play tennis. And anyone in your team are classed as your rivals. So you don't give away any secrets. You don't tell them when you're struggling. And I think that gives me a completely different perspective because of my team sport upbringing. You play multiple sports, doesn't matter if you're any good at them. So you're given the exposure to multiple different sports. That can only be good from a physical development point of view, but also from a mental point of view as well. Because you're just trying stuff, and it's not about being good at the sport. And this is what really frustrates me about tennis, because it's a race to the bottom. We're constantly thinking that we've got to be really good. You can only have private lessons if you're good. You can only attend the performance program if you're good. You can only get into these high grade tournaments if you're good. But we don't know if these kids are going to be good pro players in 10 years' time. We have no idea. Again, I did a stream about this a while back. We have no idea. So why not just let the kids play? Why have we got to put this outcome-focused pressure on them all the time? Then they pay a nominal fee, and everything's supported by the national lottery. So I'm guessing it's government funded. And this is a big thing I talk about quite a lot from my upbringing playing football. Like in football, if you go to an academy, you get your coaching paid for, you get all your kit paid for, you get travel expenses. You get all the tournaments organised for you. You literally just turn up at training. You turn up for matches. Everything's organised. Everything's done for you. In tennis, you pay for everything. You have to organise your own tournament schedule, your own travel. It's very, very expensive. And yes, national governing bodies may give a little bit of funding, but that funding's so small. I'm not going to start disclosing numbers here, but we're talking, it doesn't really cover much. Even if you're a national level player, you don't get much funding. despite the fact that national governing bodies, some of them, the big Grand Slam ones, generate lots of money from the Grand Slams. We don't see any of that money at grassroots. Everything's paid for by the parents. Again, national lottery money. Again, I don't know the whole economic system in Norway, but I know we have national lottery money over here, but a lot of that money tends to go into performance or into facilities. It's not really spread out far and wide. Again, I don't know the complete ins and outs of the national lottery funding, but that's interesting. So it's quite cheap to play all sports in Norway, whereas tennis here in the UK, £50 for a private lesson. Come on, it's very expensive. Group sessions, £10. You got to play 4 or 5 times a week. Looking at maybe £100 a week, £150 a week. Over 52 weeks, quite expensive, plus tournaments and equipment and stuff like that. Tennis is very expensive. And again, I think that's why tennis has this reputation of being elitist, not because only the wealthy can play, but to really possibly get all those hours in court and get all the tournament structure, you do need money. You need money to pay for all that stuff as well. Coaches or volunteers, that's a really interesting one. And when I shared this with a few coaches a few weeks back, they all got up in arms going, that can never work. We'll never get paid. We've got to be volunteers. And my question to them, and the question maybe that you can answer here in the comments is, well, imagine if we had less professional coaches, so coaches that are paid, more volunteers. Is that such a bad thing? Because again, we look at coaching in this country as very much a business. It's not about player development. It's all about the coach making lots of money. And I get that because, again, you've got bills to pay, you've got a house to keep, and you've got food to put on the table. So I get that 100%. But that causes lots of problems. Coaches don't send players to tournaments. Why? Because if I send 10 players to a tournament the weekend, that's potentially 10 private lessons that I'm down, £500. So why would I send players to a tournament and cost me £500? Why would I move players onto different clubs or academies? Because if I move that player on, it's going to impact my income. So if we had more volunteers at grassroots level, would that be a bad thing? Because if these people have got an income from somewhere else and they do tennis as a volunteer coaching role, it works in other sports like football. And then obviously when you get onto the academies and stuff, then coaches are then professional and paid. Is that such a bad thing? I'm not too sure. I think I'm really interested to hear your thoughts here in the comments about that. Would it be a bad thing if we had more volunteers in tennis in terms of coaches? Why do coaches have to be paid? And the amount of time I've sat in coaches meetings and coaches have demanded 30 hours a week at £40. It's like, well, good luck with that. So maybe that's a different video where we can go a bit more in depth in that. But I am interested what you talk about. The no scores or standings at regional level to age 11. Talk about this the other week on the stream. Why do we have tournaments at under 10 in terms of keeping score, winner, loser, knockout, national rankings, recent form? The LTA changed it. So you don't really have national rankings now at under 10. We have recent form, which is a ranking. So it's just a different name. But why? What bonus does it have? And I can see from an LTA's point of view, like if you have a tournament, you don't want to have a massive free for all. Like if you've got a really experienced player and a very low experienced player, if they play a match, it's not going to be a good experience for anyone. I understand that element of it. But the bit I always go back to is just get these kids to play matches then. Just get them to play matches. Get them to play tennis festivals. And again, I know here in the UK, I think sports like rugby and hockey are now having more festivals at under 10. And they're not really looking at winners or losers. Why can't we have that in tennis? Why has it got to be structured? And I keep going. I did used to always think, yeah, but they need to know how to play tournaments. They've got to deal with defeat. They have to deal with a knockout. But now I'm thinking, do they need to deal with that at the age of under 11? What's the rush to give them that experience? Because they're not going to, if they're going to be a pro player, okay, pro player maybe 16 onwards, Well, between the age of 12 and 16, then they can have the experience. Why have we got to give them that experience really early? Can't we just let them play tennis? So again, please check out the stream when I discuss my thoughts on the competition structure in the UK. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And this is the bit I really like here. Okay. The players decide amongst themselves what to do in practice. Player-centered coaching. How often do tennis coaches say to the players, okay, what are we working on today? Very rarely. It might be, okay, we could work on X, Y, or Z. Or most generally, it's we are working on this today. I guarantee it'll be a forehand. That's what most coaches do. They just love working on forehands. But again, I say this a lot in coach education now. It's not my tennis. It's the players' tennis. It's their world. And I'm just lucky enough to be a part of it. And sometimes the ego of the coach gets in the way. It's my world and you're coming into my world. So you're going to do what I want. And I get laughed at sometimes. I call all my players boss. Hi, boss. How's it going, boss? What are we doing today, boss? And the players look at me funny when I first do it. Like, why are you calling me the boss? You're the boss. I'm like, no, I'm not. You pay me. And in life, if someone pays you, they're your boss. So you're paying me. Like, I am at your service. I'm here to make you a better tennis player. And the ego of tennis coaches gets in the way. It's like, no, I'm in charge. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to make all the decisions because I know best because I'm an expert tennis coach. So I really like that idea of the kids do stuff in practice. And there's definitely a balance there because sometimes if you say to kids, what we're going to do, they're just going to give you the silly games, jailbreak, cross the river. But they're only going to do that if that's all you play and you use those games as a reward at the end of a session. And it's interesting because I've been experimenting recently with my players with the warm-up or the last 15 minutes and say, okay, what do you want to do? This is your free time now. Go and do whatever you want. 9 times out of 10, the players just go and play matches against each other. And what's really interesting is they start making their own rules up and they start making their own world. They're not going off and playing jail with each other. They're going off and playing tennis. And it's interesting because I think we always have this mindset of, oh, we've got to be in control. We have to be the authority. And the last bit of the section here is a great one. Youth sports in the US, driven by egos and money. Very much so in the UK, I believe. I think tennis in the UK is very much driven by money. Again, I get it. Everyone's self-employed. We've all got bills to pay. We've all got food to put on the table. But ultimately, we always will look at it from a financial point of view. And then egos. I'm the coach. I'm the expert. I've played tennis to a good level. I know what it takes to reach the top. Well, if you knew that, you wouldn't be coaching. You'd be playing tennis. And parents as well. Parents are so ego-driven. They get dragged into what I call the bear pit. There's a mention there in the article about Facebook pictures with medals. Parents turning up to tennis lessons with a kid dressed in full tennis gear. Why? You're not playing. Why are you in full tennis gear? Well, because I'm a tennis player. I've got to look the part. And it's so ego-driven. And it's tough because I've been that ego-driven coach as well. It's all about me. And I'm the star of the show. And I see it so much, like even now, just on reflection over the past couple of weeks, months, when I've worked with various coaches telling players how to play. I know what's best. I noticed this. I think you should do this. Well, you've got no idea because you've got no perspective from the player. But coaches believe they're experts. Parents believe they're experts. And we believe it's our world and the player's lucky to be part of it. It's not. It's the player's world. And we're lucky to be part of that. And then if we go down a little bit more, and so youth sports in the US driven by egos and money, youth sports in Norway driven by fun. And that word fun gets lost a little bit. Because like when we think of fun, we think of silliness and messing around. It's not serious. Well, first of all, does it have to be serious with the kids? Does it have to be why does it have to be so serious so quick? What's the benefit of making it so serious? And the amount of young players I've seen who are virtually full-time tennis players by the age of 10, and that's all they do. They get up in the morning, they train before school, they go do a full day at school, come back, they train in the evening. They do that 4, maybe 5 times a week. At a weekend, they're playing competitions, they're traveling up and down the country. It's a full-time job by the age of 10. And they wonder why people burn out. And that sort of gets mentioned a little bit further down. So I'm just going to scroll a bit further down. I'm not going to read out the full article. So it talks a little bit about the fun elements, and a lot of the Norwegians, it's a big focus on just playing the game, playing the sport that you enjoy, playing the sport that you love. You try most sports until you're 16 or 17, and then you just pick which one you like the most. And there's no real pressure from anyone. And they've got like a charter where if parents go against the charter, so if you're forced into a sport that you don't enjoy, then you actually break the charter. It's really interesting. And then I just highlighted a bit here about the system. It grants children the right to learn many different skills and be granted opportunities for variation, the right to state their viewpoints and be heard, the right to participate in planned and execution of their own sport and activities, the right to choose which sport and how many sports they wish to participate in, and decide for themselves how much they like to train. And it adds there, an example of a violation of these rights, as if the child is pressured by the parent to participate in competition against their will. So the player has a view. Again, I think this is something that I definitely think we need to bring into tennis, like players' rights. Like, what rights do players have? Like, if we look at it from an ethical point of view, be careful what I say here, but like some lessons I see are bullying. They're bullying. Coach shouting at players, you can't do this, you must do this. That's not correct. That's not the right type of ball. You must do this better. That's not good enough. Imagine if you went to work and your boss talked to you like that. You'd literally either knock them out or you wouldn't work there. But coaches think they've got the right to speak to people like that. But not only speak to people like that, but speak to fellow coaches like that. You must do this because I'm the expert. I'm the lead coach. This is my way. You have to do it this way. You got no right to talk to players like that. And the player has a right to say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't think that's right. And the amount of times where a coach asks the questions and a player will say something that maybe might go against the philosophy, or they may find it an alternative view of the exercise. And the coach goes, no, that's not right. Well, how do you know? You have no idea what's right and what's wrong for that player. You only have, and I say this all the time now when I'm talking to players, it's only my opinion. I can give you my opinion, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. At the end of the day, the person who makes that decision is you. And like the players have a right to talk and be heard. And again, when I listen to coaches ask players questions, it's so leading. And there's a very obvious way that the coach wants the player to answer. So therefore, players are so scared to give opinions. They just give the stock answer. The amount of time I hear the word split step is unbelievable. C-shape, time and space. They're scared to give opinions because they know that the coach wants a certain answer. So that, again, goes into the whole problem-solving creativity element of players. But coaches got to be careful. Like, if I think back to the way I was coached when I was younger, I didn't like coaching when I was younger for various reasons. Only because I couldn't use my creativity, but like shouting at players. And I did a video way back when about when I witnessed a lesson, and it was virtual bullying. The coach screaming at the player that they can't do it. And it wasn't the player's fault, it was the coach's fault. The coach's set of practice that was absolutely unrealistic. And I see this a lot where coaches set up practice designs and the player can't achieve it. And it's interesting because when the coach does a demo, they can't achieve it. And then they're shouting at the players that they can't do it. If I'm a player going, well, yeah, but you can't do it. And it's just this egotistic view of coaching of I'm the expert. It really winds me up. You can probably tell I'm getting wound up just thinking about it. But I like the fact that it's a violation of rights. I do believe that in all youth sports, there should be a child charter, a child rights charter. Every child should have a voice. They should have a say in what they want to do. They should have a say in how much practice they want to do. It shouldn't be driven by the coach or the parents. And I know UK sport here, or UK coaching, and maybe in the UK, they've really got the play your way. It's great child initiative about being more player centered. And the word player centered gets thrown around loads. Oh, we're dead player centered here. So player centered means where the player leads. And I see lots of clubs going, yeah, we're player centered, and then the coach is leading everything. The coach is making all the decisions. The coach is telling you how to play, what to do all the time. To me, like, not just from a sport and player development point of view, but from a mental health point of view for the kids, that's huge. And again, it's maybe something I'll look to sort of uncover in a future chat. And then we talk about Erling Haaland. Obviously, Erling Haaland plays for Manchester City. Pretty good footballer. Scores quite a few goals. And this is a quote from his dad. Well, it's a little about his background, to be honest. So obviously, he was born in England when his dad played for Leeds, I think it was. Then obviously moved back to Norway. But this is a bit about his story here. Alfie was his dad. Roy Keane's mate. His father moved the family back to Norway when Erling was 3, back to a town of 12,000 on the southwest coast, back to Norwegian sports system. Erling participated in handball, golf, tennis, track, cross country, skiing, and who knows what else, focusing on soccer at the age of 14, just as he had a 10-inch growth spurt. So it says here he is now 6'5". So didn't really focus on football to the age of 14. And this is now arguably one of the best strikers in the world at the moment, at the time I sort of streaming this. But didn't focus on football to 14. He played loads of other sports. He's not playing football day in, day out. He's playing lots of various different sports. And this is a great quote from his dad, Alf. Versatility is important. Once you develop a completely different side of your body, you can be positive no matter what you do. And that's a common theme. Again, if I go a little bit further up, variation was in the previous quote, versatility. And that's what I bang on about all the time with the ecological dynamics approach. We need adaptable, versatile players by giving them variability, not just within the tennis coaching, but giving them access and the freedom to play other sports. I carry on the quote. Sorry, the article. Research has confirmed as much. A comprehensive 2013 study found prepubescent specialization does not increase chances of becoming elite, but does carry higher risk of injury, mental stress, and burnout. It concluded that for most sports, such intense training in a single sport to the exclusion of others should be delayed until late adolescence to optimize success. That's interesting because I've had quite a few conversations recently about research. And the gap between scientific research and coaching is absolutely massive. We don't get the research come through to coaches, practitioners. I'm lucky enough now with my lens that I'm looking at loads of research for ecological dynamics and stuff. So I'm a lot closer to the research than most coaches. But if you put that in front of parents and coaches and say, listen, the research shows us it actually does more harm than good to play tennis 5 times a week. And then you get, yeah, but such and such was doing that. Yeah, but that was them. We talk about this a lot on this channel. Everyone's unique. There's no blueprint. Like Agassi, yeah, he was pushed into it, hates tennis. Serena and Venus, yes, they played a lot of tennis. And yes, they become very successful. But I think sometimes we look at stuff like that. Like, could it have been lots of fun? Could they have been even better? Could they have been even better if they didn't specialize so early? And I've got a great article coming out next week on my website, mytenniscoaching.com. Like, does actual coaching sometimes limit or hold back players? Like in this case here, like Erling Haaland played lots of different sports till the age of 14. So imagine if our tennis players played lots of different other sports. Like, how good would they be in terms of their ability to adapt and be versatile, like we mentioned here? Like, to me, like, I can think of so many players that specialised really early and stopped playing by the age of 13, 14. National level players that I've worked with. And they had enough by 13, 14 because it was a job. And the last bit here now, I think, and it always comes back down to this for me. The 19 billion youth sports industry in the United States does not want to read this or that. Fields need to be rented. Coaches and referees need to be paid. Hotels need to be filled. Facebook pictures need to be posted. Egos need to be boosted. Fun. It's not fun for the parents. Sorry, it's fun for the parents and the club director driving a Range Rover. Like an absolutely great article. And the end there really hits home. I think it is about the ego. We're feeding the ego of parents. We're feeding the ego of coaches. The amount of time a coach says to me, I've produced this player. I know what I'm doing. I've worked with these players, these national level players. I always have a smile when I say that because I don't think you have. I think you've been lucky enough to work with those players. I don't think you are the main reason that they're at that level. I know many coaches who are absolutely shocking tennis coaches, but I've worked with some really good players, generally because you've been in the right place at the right time, or you're really good at BSing people and people believe that you know what you're talking about. But when you actually look at your coaching ability, you can't coach. You couldn't coach me to walk out this house. But because you talk the talk and you're a snake oil salesman, you get to work with some good players. And there's lots of great coaches out there who are the unsung heroes who actually do all the real hard graft and hard work. And they develop the players and they never get the recognition. And it annoys me sometimes when I see awards given out to coaches because players have won certain events. I'm like, yeah, but you've not actually got the player. The players won the event. You're just there for the ride. I'm not saying that there's no impact there. And there's some coaches working with some good players who do make a huge difference. But I find the coaches who shout about it the most are the ones who actually don't. The ones who don't mention who they work with, they're normally the real true coaches. But the ones who are posting pictures on Facebook and stuff like that about all their tournament successes, in my opinion, I don't think that, again, that's just the ego of the coach, ego of the club. And the money element, I think the money element's huge. It goes back to what I said before, coaches want money. I understand that 100%. Generally, the question I always ask is that coach focused or player focused? If it's coach focused, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And it's a question I now ask when I'm doing coach qualifications. Why do you want to get into coaching? The amount of time young coaches say to me, or any age coaches, I want to make good money. Coaching's good money. It's easy money, isn't it? And one, it's not easy. And the money's not actually that good. Once you take away your tax and your insurance and your expenses, you're looking probably minimum wage generally. And good luck getting 40 hours a week. But why do you coach is a question I ask all the time. What do you want to get from coaching? But there you go. So hopefully you found that article interesting. I will leave a link to it in the notes, both on Spotify and YouTube and Facebook as well. Please do check out my other streams. Again, I'll leave links to the streams when I talk about youth competition and player pathway as well. So that I kind of touched upon those themes here today. Hopefully you enjoyed the live stream. And as always, have a great week. And I will